ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Ahead of October 2025 presidential election, a new political coalition emerges in Côte d'Ivoire, just as CEI launches sponsorship collection. Police tear gas protesters in Togo as nationwide demonstrations against Seconde enters day 2.
Internet can help to mobilize people. Internet is a tool which is very powerful, which can reach people easily. And that's why, the authorities in Togo are getting a bit afraid of what is actually happening.
Gambians react as country ranks 4th most peaceful country in Africa, first in ECOWAS region. And ECOWAS chair Madabio calls for Africa's inclusion as permanent member of UN Security Council. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin with the political development in Côte d'Ivoire, as another new political coalition has been formed by two presidential hopefuls ahead of the October 2025 elections. The newly established association called the Alliance for Justice, the Nation and Change Adjuna was founded by Vincent Toby Irie, former prefect of Abidjan, and Asale Tiemoko Antoine, deputy mayor of Tiasale in the Agnabi-Tiasi region of the Lagoon district. Vincent Tobire, leader of the New Dawn movement, stated that his party shares a common political vision with the Today and Tomorrow Côte d'Ivoire ADCI movement led by Asale Tiemoko Antoine. Regarding the possibility of a joint candidacy in the upcoming presidential election, both leaders indicated that a decision would be announced in the coming days. Here are the two leaders speaking on Thursday following the announcement of the political coalition.
Nous sommes une alliance, nous avons le même objectif.
We are an alliance. We have the same objective. We have almost the same social project, and we are moving in the same direction. We are going to combine our electoral strategies. We have already planned rear passes and the joint implementation of our efforts.
Et la mise en commun de nos efforts.
It's true that we are used to alliances that have been destroyed because they were built on opportunism. And what we are doing here is not something that was decided only yesterday. It's been more than a year since we have worked strategically on this joining that is taking place today. And so we think that there is a convergence in what we do, and there is a real will to do things differently, to participate in politics differently in our country.
Meanwhile, the Ivorian Independent Electoral Commission (IEC) has officially announced the collection of citizen sponsorships will open on July 1, 2025 and will end on August 26, 2025. The information was provided by the Vice President of the CEI, Alain Dougou, during a press conference held on Thursday at the institution's headquarters in Abidjan, Cocody. According to the Electoral Code, each candidate must be sponsored by a list of voters representing 1% of the local electorate in at least 50% of the regions and in the districts of Yamoussoukro and Abidjan. Each candidate was able to mandate two representatives to be trained, who in turn will be responsible for training their teams that will meet with voters to collect signatures. The CEI also calls on the population and especially voters to welcome the signature collectors who will be traveling through neighborhoods and villages starting July 1. Now, crossing over to neighboring Guinea, as transitional president General Mamadi Doumbouya has officially received the draft of the new constitution of the republic. The proposed draft document was prepared by a special committee established by the transitional government. Guineans are expected to vote in a referendum this September to decide whether or not to adopt the proposed constitution. Augustine Koli has more details in this report.
Members of the Transitional Parliament presented the draft constitution to General Mamadi Doumbouya at the Presidential Palace on Thursday evening. Prior to the submission, they held a plenary session behind closed doors at the People's Palace to discuss the content of the draft constitution drafted by a commission that was established. The contents of the draft constitution have not yet been made public. Once approved by the presidency, a campaign to popularize the text will be carried out until the referendum date of September 21. Dan Sakuroma is the president of Guinea's national parliament.
This vast exercise of popular consultation has allowed us to capture the living word of the nation in all its diversity. The National Council of Transition has worked independently, and it is precisely this freedom of action that has allowed the production of a balanced fundamental text.
According to a member of the Transitional Parliament, the constitution to be submitted for approval insists on limiting the presidential term to 2. The major change is the increase in the presidential term from 5 to 7 years. However, it is difficult to know at this time whether the text will allow the military in power to be candidates in the presidential election scheduled for the end of 2025. It should be noted that journalists were not invited to the ceremony where the draft constitution was presented to General Mamadi Doumbouya. Those in attendance were the government representatives, religious leaders, and ambassadors accredited to Guinea. Leaders of opposition political parties had decided to boycott the ceremony. They denounced the transitional authorities' desire to remain in power.
A report from General Ibrahim Abad in Conakry and voiced by Augustine Colley.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We head now to Togo, where activity seems to be returning to normal after Thursday's protest saw a clash with security personnel. However, clashes erupted Thursday between demonstrators and security forces in several neighborhoods of the capital, Lomé, as tensions continue to mount despite government ban on public gatherings. Our correspondent Sylvia Wadrago in Lomé a few moments ago reported that on the roads of certain neighborhoods in Lomé, the capital, debris from yesterday's damage is still visible, as there are the security and the law enforcement stationed at strategic points in the city. However, there is no sign of tension either from the security forces or from the protesters. The situation appears calm. This Friday, the protesters had planned to set up barricades on the main roads of the capital, Lomé, in order to paralyze traffic and prevent activities from taking place, just as they did on the first day of protests yesterday, Thursday. The protesters, including young people, opposition, political parties, and civil society organizations, are demanding the resignation of Farouk Nasingbe's president of the Council of Ministers. But Abdullah Hassan has the details of what transpired on day one.
The rally scheduled for Thursday at the Dove of Peace in Lomé could not take place in a peaceful manner as the police fired tear gas to disperse groups of protesters, leading to scenes of panic and stampedes in the affected areas. Videos circulating on social media show protesters being beaten by civilian police officers. No official toll has been released, but eyewitnesses reported heavy-handed arrests and a tense atmosphere throughout the city. In contrast to Lomé, where the call to demonstrate was widely answered, the situation in the interior regions of the country remains generally calm, though some discreet mobilization was observed in a few cities. This Friday, protesters plan to erect barricades on the main roads of the capital, Lomé, with the aim of paralyzing traffic and preventing activities similar to what occurred on Thursday, the first day of protests. The arrest follows calls from the Togolese diaspora for mass demonstrations from June 26 to 28, 2025, demanding Farouk Nasingbe's resignation from power. Activist networks have been mobilizing citizens through social media platforms, particularly TikTok, Facebook, and WhatsApp, which have played a central role in rallying support and sharing real-time updates. The Togolese authorities, who banned the series of demonstrations, have not yet officially responded to the situation.
Well, we do have more on Togo much later on our guest interview. In the meantime, the Gambia has been ranked 4th most peaceful country in Africa and 55th globally in the 2025 Global Peace Index released by the Institute for Economics and Peace. The report assessed 163 countries using 23 key indicators, including levels of safety, internal conflict, and militarization. Sankle Janko tells us more in this report.
This recognition highlights the Gambia's ongoing stability and the strength of its social fabric, achieved through years of democratic reform and community resilience. The country has climbed from 8th place in Africa in 2023 to 4th place today, indicating significant progress in national stability. In response, the Gambia's Information Minister Dr. Cisse welcomes the ranking, but cautioned that peace remains fragile, emphasizing that misinformation could threaten this hard-won harmony.
Again, we are still alert. We are still aware that there are dangers, particularly misinformation and disinformation. And we are taking measures and work with all stakeholders to ensure that we identify and counter disinformation disorders so they don't become a menace to our peace.
This ranking is a statement to the unity of the Gambian people. But what do ordinary Gambians think about this recognition? Some Gambians share their reactions with WADR.
It shows that despite our challenges, we have maintained a level of common coexistence that make many nations strive for. Even though we are struggling on a daily basis, but we still maintain the pride, the love, the care we have for one another. This ranking means a lot.
Meanwhile, Mariang, a prominent member of civil society organizations in the Gambia, also offers his perspective on the matter.
Being peaceful should reflect into all households. You should be free to work anytime in the night, just like we used to experience before. Anytime in the night without being attacked. That is the Gambia that we know. That is the Gambia that we grew up in. And that is the Gambia that we cherish, and we work every day to protect those values. The penetration of criminals into our society has to be talked about, has to be addressed, and we have to act now.
Mauritius was named the most peaceful country in Africa in 2025, ranking 26th globally. Following closely, Botswana claims 43rd spot, while Namibia ranked 3rd in Africa, positioned at 50th worldwide.
Sankle Janko filed that report. Meanwhile, Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing during his official visit tied to the Davos Summer Forum. The meeting aims to strengthen the Sino-Senegalese strategic partnership, particularly within the context of South-South cooperation. The discussion built on the momentum from the 2024 Beijing Summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation to emphasize deeper collaboration, especially through initiatives like the 10 Actions for China-Africa Partnership, targeting digital innovation, new energy investment, and cultural exchanges ahead of the 2026 China-Africa Year of People-to-People Exchanges. Sonko reaffirmed Senegal's support for the One China policy and praised China for its respectful, non-dominant approach to international cooperation.
It is encouragement from the President of the Republic. The relations between our two countries for a very long time are strong. They are founded above all on values we share as members of the Global South. What we appreciate above all is the nature of the cooperation that China maintains with our countries. That is, a collaboration based on respect for each other's values, rather than attempt to impose its own values on others.
Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko speaking there. In a bid to drive transformation in the public sector, the Nigerian government initiated the inaugural International Civil Service Conference in Abuja, the capital. The event was held through the Civil Service of the Federation and in partnership with the Global Government Forum. This landmark event aims to rejuvenate, innovate, and accelerate the future of public service delivery in Nigeria and across the globe. Yechenu Sasich in Abuja brings us details.
The conference featured 8 dedicated stages, each hosting curated sessions on various topics, including digital innovation in government, reforming public service culture and values, developing a future-ready workforce, performance management, and accountability. Other focus areas included climate action and green governance, inclusive policy design, and citizen engagement. In his remarks, President Bola Tinubu emphasized that innovation is crucial for making the Nigerian civil service globally competitive.
In today's rapid evolving world of technology, innovation remains critical in ensuring that the civil service is dynamic, digital, ethical, and globally competitive institution. An innovative civil service ensures that we meet today's needs and overcome tomorrow's challenges.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's head of civil service, Didi Esther Wilson-Jack, said the civil service is the backbone of every society.
Together, we are advancing the civil service in Nigeria and beyond, and your insights will undoubtedly enrich our discussions on governance, public service reforms, and service excellence.
Also addressing the conference through a video message, United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed commended the ongoing reforms in the civil service, pledging continued support to the process.
And we must strengthen and professionalize the civil service. This means building a public workforce that reflects the diversity of our societies, upholding ethical behavior and accountability, and achieving gender parity in decision-making. Innovation labs, digital tools, and participatory approaches, when tailored to context, can help close the last mile gap in public service delivery.
Participants included top-level officials, development partners, digital experts, thought leaders, and young public sector professionals. For WADR, Yechinu Sasitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Ahead of October 2025 presidential election, a new political coalition emerges in Côte d'Ivoire just as EI launches sponsorship collection. Police tear gas protesters in Togo as nationwide demonstrations against Nasingbe enter day 2. Gambians react as country ranked 4th most peaceful country in Africa, first in ECOWAS region. And still ahead in the news, ECOWAS Chair Madabio calls for Africa's inclusion as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. We do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We're streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube and Facebook. In Liberia, several former officials of the previous government were detained at the Monrovia Central Prison on Thursday amid allegations of diverting humanitarian aid. They include D. Maxwell Kemaya, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mary Bro, former Director General of the General Services Agency, and Henry Williams, a former head of the National Disaster Management Agency, among others. The former officials are accused of the misappropriation of donor aid supplies and other alleged corrupt practices. This situation has sparked public debate and accusations of political witch hunt. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The recent arrest stem from an investigation initiated by the Presidential Task Force for Asset Recovery and Retrieval, which was established through an executive order by President Joseph Boakai. According to Edwin Claremontin, the officials involved are accused of misappropriating over 25,000 bags of rice, which represents VAT humanitarian aid donated in 2023 by the King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. Upon leaving the Monrovia Central Prison, former Foreign Minister D. Maxwell Kemaya declared his innocence regarding the allegations and stated his intention to prove this in court.
As one of the political leaders in our country, adherence to the rule of law key for us, so there is no way that we can be advocating for adhering to the rule of law and then we do away.
Meanwhile, some Liberians gathered at the South Beach prison in support of the accused officials, claiming that the government is conducting a witch hunt.
This lawless government that put pee in our hearts, they collected all 14 million from bag in the name of bag registration. They have alleged that the rest must not use for the internal public. Where's the other report? The vice president has become the procurement director of the government. What happened to the 350 bosses that you talking about? Just on 1 year, the regime has lost.
At the same time, civil society groups, including the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, have criticized the government's approach. They argue that the inconsistent prosecution of current officials, many of whom are only suspended months after other reports are made public, undermines efforts to combat corruption. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada Bio has called for urgent reforms at the United Nations Security Council to address historical imbalances affecting the African continent. President Bill Wu was recently elected chairman of the ECOWAS Commission, stressed the need for full African representation in both the permanent and non-permanent categories of the Security Council. He made a statement on Thursday in a video shared on social media marking the 80th anniversary of the UN Charter. The ECOWAS Commission chairman emphasized that reforming the Security Council to include Africa as a permanent member is not only necessary but urgent.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Let's take you back to Togo, where the Thursday Nashingbe resignation demonstration turned violent, with protesters clashing with security personnel. Meanwhile, with civic space increasingly shrinking in the country, social media, widely used by young people, is becoming the ideal place for mobilization. The ongoing protests against governance began on social media. However, a question looms. What is the impact of this new protest movement, which began on social media in Togo and is now being followed in the street? Kwamel Afagnon, head of West Africa for Internet Without Borders, responds.
Yeah, I think that in Togo, what we are, as you said, what we are now observing is not new. In the past, we observe such trends. But then the citizens realize that internet can help to mobilize people. You know, internet is a tool which is very powerful, which can reach people easily, which can allow people to protest sometimes when they don't have this possibility in the real civic space. So because they feel they feel some pressure from the government in that space, that civic space, because they are not allowed to protest, to mobilize in that civic space, and then they see the possibilities through online spaces. Then they try to take advantage from that, and that's how we see now people, you know, protesting on platforms like Facebook, TikTok, X, and at the same time we see, you know, authorities in Togo starting to think about like a law that could like reduce the possibilities that citizens have now to protest and organize themselves online, actually, to like to confront, you know, their leaders, actually, their politicians.
When you said the social media today is a powerful tool, are you sure it's going to deliver that amount of impact that the Togolese citizens are calling for?
Yes, I think that there's a real chance like that the message could be delivered to the right audience at the right time. And that's why, you know, like the authorities in Togo are getting a bit afraid of what is actually happening. What we observe now is that, you know, the government is like now giving some, they are trying to give some license for influencers on the social network. So they decided to give those license to people who are managing communities, like big communities online, actually. So basically, if you are a so-called influencer now in Togo, you have to get this license. Otherwise, you can get penalized. You can be asked to pay like a fine up to 500,000 francs CFA, or your account can be deleted, for example, which is a real problem. You know, the government, through this license project, they announced that the idea was to like fight disinformation, actually. So they said that there's a lot of fake news, you know, people are attacking the government, so they spread a lot of fake news. But at the same time, you have now platforms like Meta or X who decided to not do any more fact check, for example. So they decided to let disinformation spread, and now they are trying to have some so they decided to let those information spread around, and in some areas, in some geographical areas, they are now trying to have some partnership with authorities.
Well, that was Kemal Afagnon, head of West Africa for Internet Without Borders. In sport news, Kip Young clocks fastest mile in history in exhibition run And Senegal and Chelsea's Jackson hits with a 2-game ban. Want to know why and what happened? Well, Sankuli Danku is here. Tell us why a man has gotten the ban. Thank you.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, I'll get to that momentarily. But let's begin with some athletics because world and Olympic champion Faith Kipyegon made history once again on Thursday, running the fastest women's mile ever in 4 hours, 6 minutes and 42 seconds during a specially arranged exhibition at the Stade Charles in Paris. Although the performance is not eligible for the official record status, the Kenyan star eclipsed her own world record of 4 hours, 7 minutes and 64 seconds set in 2023. The run took place at the same track where she previously set world record over 1,500 meters and 5,000 meters. And of course, talking about football, in football, like you ask, Chelsea and Senegal forward Nicholas Jackson has been handed a 2-match suspension following his red card in the 3-1 and Club World Cup loss to Flamengo. The Senegalese striker was sent off just 4 minutes after coming on as a sub and after a challenge. Initially banned for 1 game, but FIFA decided to extend the sanction for serious foul play, ruling him for Chelsea's round of 16 tie in the ongoing Club World Cup. This is his second, red card this season in 10 games. That is really, really serious.
Then he has to be very careful.
He has to be very, very careful because he's been IMAC now. He keeps having red cards for no reason. And finally, of course, in Nigeria, Rivers Angels head coach Tosan Blackson is expecting a tough battle against Nasarawa Amazons in the President Federation Cup final on Saturday at the Mobolaji Johnson Arena in Lagos. The defending champions are aiming to retain their title after edging Niger Raids 1-0 in last year's final. Blackson says his side is fully focused and determined to lift the trophy back to back.
Well, let's hope and see what happens. I know that the league is getting stronger by the day.
Very, very strong.
Because huge amount of money is being injected into it.
Of course, and
it's
making the broadcasting as well.
Yes, and it's making the league very, very attractive,
very
which is the main thing.
Of course.
Thank you so much for sport. And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Fali Lusso and Sheikh and Jai for the technical support. Well, let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many